Welcome to the lecture on technology of pattern making. So, in this lecture we will discuss about the pattern materials. So, we studied about the concept of solidification and also fluidity in the earlier lectures, and the purpose of studying the solidification as well as fluidity is to see that how the liquid metal has to go inside the cavity and how you ensure that the cavity is filled in a proper time within a stipulated time, and it goes into all the intricate cavities, intricate details, it fills all the intricate details, and then once it fills all the intricate details, then the solidification has to start. The thing is that how to make this cavity. So, the cavity has to be same as what shape you want. So, basically for that you need something which basically you keep in the mold and then you take it out so that the cavity is generated. So, for that you need the pattern. Now, what is pattern? So, pattern is nothing but it is basically the replica of that cast product. So, pattern is the approximate that is modified in accordance with the requirement of the casting process. So, approximate replica or duplicate of the object to be made. Now, why we call it approximate? Because it is not the complete replica of the final cast product. The final cast product what we see is basically coming after doing some treatment on it after the casting process. Like when the casting is complete, you are basically removing the burrs on the surface, you are finishing the surface, you are breaking all the attachments. During that process you are giving a proper finish to the material or so, and also you are ensuring that metal has to the material has to come out from the, so pattern has to be removed from the mold when you are making the cavity. So, for that is why it is approximate replica, and it is written that modified in accordance with the requirement of the casting process, material being cast and the molding technique being used. Now, depending upon the casting process requirement, like you may have the requirement that you must have a very fine finish of the surface. You may have the requirement that what kind of material you are casting or which kind of molding technique you are using. Depending upon that, this approximate term will be justified, how much it is close to the actual, how much it is varying or deviating from the actual dimension. Design and construction of a pattern is first step in making a casting. So, the thing is that when we are making any casting, the first step is that you design and construct a pattern. As we know that the pattern is basically the replica, approximate replica of the cast material, cast unit which you are making. So, you have to design it, you have to see that how you are making the pattern, how you are constructing the pattern, because ultimately as we know that if you have any material, any, suppose this is the product which you want to cast. So, if you are completely putting this inside the sand and then you are trying to take it out, you cannot take it out. So, while taking it out, this portion will get damaged. So, you won't get this cavity in that fashion. So, you will have to design and construct the pattern. Many a times if you have the pattern in such a form, it is simple, then you can think of having the pattern in this form and you can take it out. So, from here once you ram the sand from all the sides and take it out. Whereas, if you have the pattern in this shape and if you are ramming from the top, then you cannot take it out, because that will damage the mold here, it cannot take it. So, for that, so here this is not possible. So, for that what you have to do, maybe that you have to make it in two halves. So, another half will be again here like that. So, one will be here, one will be made by ramming in this portion and take it out in this way, another will be rammed in this portion and further you take it in this way, and then the two cavities are joined. So, once you join these two cavities, you will have a whole cavity of this type. So, for that, so the thing is that when you are making any cavity, you will have to design and construct in such a way that you can have the cavity and you can pour the liquid metal into it. Quality of casting produced will depend largely on the pattern material, its design and construction. So, how much will be the quality of the casting, that will basically depend upon the pattern material. Pattern material may be wood, it may be other materials, it may be metal or so. So, that basically changes the quality of the cast product, mainly the surface quality, surface characteristics, and also its design and construction. So, how it is properly designed, how different dimensions are there which are completely matching with the actual dimensions or so. So, this way that becomes important. Use of expensive patterns can be justified only when the quantity of casting required is relatively substantial. Now, the thing is that normally in earlier days the wood was available in large quantity, and also there was not much of the hue and cry over maybe the dimensional changes. You used to make larger dimensions mostly to have more to give, and you give deliberately more factor of safety. So, at that time you are not thinking of cost saving or so in those cases, and also you have ample of wood, you are not worrying about it. So, wood was, and it is cheaply available. So, wood is normally used, but then slowly the depending upon the requirement of surface finish or wood not being available, or there are many disadvantages also, like storing of the wood for a long time. Maybe sometimes many of the wood which is available, they do not remain dimensionally stable, or how long you have to use the wood, in what atmosphere it is going to be used. Many a times you are using in a very robust atmosphere, or with the sand used for long, basically that erodes also from the sides. So, based on that, I mean based upon the conditions on which you are working, if you are using it for very long run for many lakhs of units, then it is better that you go for metallic patterns, because that will be long lasting, its life will be larger. So, the thing is that you can go for expensive patterns when you are going to have going to use this pattern for a long time. But when only few castings are needed, then a loose pattern made from soft variety of wood also serves the purpose. So, for that to have the economics in mind, you also use the loose piece patterns or so. The pattern material is determined primarily by the number of castings to be made, but is also influenced by the size and shape of the casting, the desired dimensional precision, and the molding process. So, that we already discussed, that we have to see that how many castings you are making, what is the size and shape of the casting. So, that also, because very large shape of casting is there, very large pattern is to be made, you cannot think of making a pattern of heavy metal like iron or so, so that because the handling will be difficult. making also will be very costly. So, in that case you will have to have the alternate thought process to make the casting in such a way that same cavity you are making, but you use the minimum of the material, and so that you can make the casting pattern in a more easy manner. Also the dimensional precision, as we discussed, that when the precision is required to be more, you will have to go for the material whose dimensional stability is more, like for metals normally that is more than that of wood. So, that way you are going to use the different materials. Molding process, you are using the manual molding process, you are using machine molding process. Based on that also, because what kind of pattern you are going to use, that also varies. Selection criteria for pattern materials. What are the selection criteria for the pattern materials? Like type and form of material to be used. What are the type of material? In what form you are using? So, that is the selection criteria, one of the criteria. Method of molding, you are using the manual molding or machine molding, high pressure molding or so, because the pattern is subjected to that pressure, because the pattern is in between, it is kept inside the molding material and then it is also pressed. So, it has to sustain that pressure. So, if it has delicate parts, you have to be careful, and if it has to be rammed, then in that case you have to have the material such a way that it can withstand that much of pressure. Construction details like provision of loose pieces, core prints. Now, that is also to be seen, that because many a times the core prints are those places on the pattern. So, if you are making the pattern in that, suppose you have a core. So, let us know what is that core. So, suppose you are placing a core. So, this core has to fit. So, it has basically to have the support. So, that support is provided by provision in the pattern itself. So, how much provision is there? Now, what kind of material should be there? So, that also is decided by is one of the factors which decides about the pattern materials. What are the allowances? Allowances to be used. So, that also, if the allowances are more or less, so that also is one of the criteria for the selection of material. Method of gating and feeding to be followed, and provision of various foundry aids. So, these are the criteria which are to be kept in mind for selection of pattern materials. Now, what should be the characteristics of the pattern material? How it should behave? So, first of all, it should be easily worked, shaped and joined. The pattern which you are making, it is made in a pattern making shop. So, if you are making the pattern from wood, you will have the different machines, wood cutting machines are there, lathe are there. So, you must, the material must be such so that you can shape it in a way you want. So, that is the first criteria, and wood basically is quite easily workable, quite easily shapeable and also joined with glues or whatever it be. So, you can join them. So, that way wood serves the purpose. Apart from that, you have other materials also like metals or so. We will discuss about different kinds of materials. You have the next condition is lightweight. Lightweight is important because if it is heavy, in case of manual movement, it brings the fatigue to the worker who is carrying it, or you will have to have the extra means to transport it or so if it is quite heavy. So, it should be light. If it is lightweight, then it is better. So, that is one of the desired characteristic of pattern material. Hard and durable, it should be hard as well as it should have a long life. So, that is the criteria. Resistance to wear and abrasion, corrosion and chemical actions. This is required because you are using it in a normally with sand or so, or in environment where it is kept for long, or maybe chemical attack may be there. So, if it is resistant to such environment, it is better. So, that also should be kept in mind. Dimensional stability. The pattern material must be dimensionally stable. We know that depending upon the changes in conditions, the dimensional changes occur with the change in weather conditions, with the change in temperature conditions. There may be changes in the dimension of the material. So, you must select a material which should be dimensionally stable. Mostly in case of wood, it is seen that with the seasonal changes, there will be variation in its dimensions. So, you should be able to basically see that you are having the material which has dimensional stability. Cheap and easy availability. So, that is very important. The material must be cheap, because if it is costly, you will have to have the justification. You can go for costly pattern if you have a very long term planning. If your production using the pattern is going to be for a very large time, and if it is the durability is there, durability has to be there, in that case you can go for some costly pattern, but it is better to have the cheap and easily available material, because if it is broken or if it is lost, in that case you can easily again further make it. Repairable and reused, many a times it gets some damage. So, in that case it should be you should be able to repair it, and you should further reuse it. So, that is also one of the characteristic. Ability to take a good surface finish. It is also important, because ultimately the pattern material, when you are making the mold, then molten metal goes into it, and the surface finish what you get of the mold, same thing you will get on the surface of the cast, and surface finish what you get on the surface of the mold, it will depend upon the type of pattern material you use. So, that way it should, if it is quite having good surface finish, it will be able to give you the cast with good surface finish. So, these are the desired characteristics of the pattern material. Next is the type of pattern materials. So, we discussed that what should be the characteristics of a pattern material. Now, mostly you have the pattern materials of following types, like you may have wood and wood products which are easily available, metals and alloys because of its large durability, more strength, more specific strength or so, plasters which set quite easily and you can get the plaster patterns, plastics and rubbers which are quite light, good specific strength. Then you have wax, which is also used as a pattern in many cases for making the very intricate shaped castings, precision castings or so. Apart from that, you have so many pattern materials are there which come in between these materials, like you have expanded polystyrene which is used in case of full mold casting. So, that is a kind of plastics or so. So, you have mostly the pattern materials of this type. So, taking the wood and wood products, you know, we discussed that since wood is the one which can be easily shaped or worked, and you can, it is light, it is easily available, and it is less costly than other materials. So, it is normally preferred. So, wood has you know, it has the cellulose of 50 to 60% and 20 to 35% of lignin, a small amount of other carbohydrates. So, this is the structure of wood, and normally wood is used when small quantities of castings are required, because if it is used in very extreme environment for longer time with sand, then the surface will be rough and that will be reflected on the surface of the casting itself. So, that is normally desirable, advisable when you have to produce small quantities of castings. It has the drawback that it may warp or swell with changes in humidity. So, if the proper treatment to wood is not given, or if the wood is of not that quality, in that case it may warp or swell with the changes in humidity. Many a times you must have seen that even in our house, if we bring certain furniture, we prefer of certain wood, and many a times we do not bring from anywhere, like we may anticipate that this may be warped, many a times it loses its dimensions. So, it all happens because of the improper moisture content in the wood material, and with change in season, basically that deforms the shape. So, for preventing the excessive shrinkage or swelling, the wood is also given certain treatment, that is known as seasoning of the wood. So, it has certain equilibrium content of moisture or water, and that should be maintained, otherwise that swelling or warping is experienced. Normally we use the different kinds of wood, and these are pine, mahogany, teak, walnut and devdar, and you have different properties for these woods, like pine wood is light, ease of working and ability to take good finish. You have mahogany, which is hard, strong and durable type of wood with negligible shrinkage or swelling after seasoning. So, normally it takes a very fine natural polish and stains well and glues excellently. So, these are the qualities of this mahogany wood. And then you have the teak wood. So, teak wood, as we all know, it is very strong and hard. So, very much it is also costly little bit. Then it has the property that it is unaffected by the fungus, and it is also easily available in the country. Then you have devdar, which is again soft variety of the wood, slightly harder than pine, but easily machinable and takes good polish. So, normally these are the traits of different kinds of wood, and among the natural woods, mahogany is said to be the best choice for pattern work. So, we prefer the mahogany one. It is ideal where the number of casting required is quite large, because it is it was said that mahogany is hard and strong as well as durable. So, when you have to go for larger number of castings, in that case this is quite suitable. This is it is the best choice for pattern work, and for when it is you have the pattern required to be used in the molding machines. So, permanent production work on molding machine is required. In that case, this wood is preferred. As we discussed, that wood has one disadvantage, that it may because of the change in humidity and because of the change of weather, it may distort or it may warp. So, we do the treatment like seasoning of the seasoning treatment to the wood, and during that seasoning treatment, basically it minimizes the effect of subsequent moisture variations by adjusting the water content of wood near to equilibrium level under exposure to average atmospheric conditions. So, basically you must have seen many a times the wood log is kept in the river, flowing water river, or it is kept in the these kilns are kept in the atmosphere, and it is kept for 2 or 3 seasons or so, and then it is used. So, basically they are the kind of seasoning methods. So, that is done either natural or artificial method. So, in the natural way, it is kept in the open space, stacked in the open space, and air drying is done for period of up to 1 full cycle of weather conditions. Then also, as we discussed, that you can put in the flowing water to wash away the moisture by osmosis, and further air drying it for a shorter duration. So, that way the equilibrium water content is maintained. And then you have the artificial seasoning methods, where the timber will be stacked in the drying kilns and subject to fast drying by allowing hot air to pass through the kiln chamber. So, one is that you have electrical method, where the high frequency electric field is exposed to that, and which brings down the level of moisture to desired level. Similarly, you can immerse it in a suitable salt solution and then expose to air for drying. So, that way you can have the seasoning of the wood. Now, you have different materials, like you have metals as well as alloys. So, as we discussed that when you need more durability of the material, when you are going to use it for larger time, then you go for metallic patterns. So, they are expensive. So, that is why, but they are dimensionally stable and durable. So, this is the advantage, that they are dimensionally stable and durable, although they are expensive. So, you are using when you have repetitive production of casting is required in larger quantities. So, that way you prefer this pattern material only in such cases. Commonly used metals are aluminum and its alloys, cast iron, steel and copper based alloys such as brass or bronze, which you can cast easily. You have the material with good strength, good surface finish. So, that way these are the normal materials which are used. You have the factors which you must consider is the availability, castability, machinability, surface finish weight, brittleness, cost. All these factors are important, because when you have to take any material, it should be easily available. If you have to further make it, it should not be the case that it is not available and you are going for another materials. So, that should not be, it should be easily castable. You are casting the material and getting that in certain shape. So, it should also be good, have good castability. Then machinability, surface finish and all these properties should be there. Another important pattern material is the gypsum plaster, plaster of Paris. So, that it has the property that when you mix this with correct quantity of water, it sets in a given time and forms a hard mass having high compressive strength. So, basically because of this, you have the cavity, you put the plaster mixed with the water, and then you are basically leaving it for some time, it will have a hard mass of that is the type of casting you want. So, that will be a pattern. Now, the thing is that normally the plasters which you are making in this way, they are expanding on the solidification. So, basically in the normal case, when you are making a liquid metal to solidify, it shrinks, and in this case it solidifies. So, you can have the adjustment in that case. In normal case, because it shrinks, you are giving certain shrinkage allowance. Now, that can basically be, so this problem, so this way this is advantage in the sense that you can choose the plaster of Paris for a proper expansion rate. So, that shrinkage of the casting can be offset. So, shrinkage allowance you can get it off, that allowance which you are giving, you need not worry about it. The gypsum plaster patterns can be prepared either by directly pouring the slurry of plaster and water into desired shape by the sweep and trickle method. So, that there are methods like you can pour it, or by sweep and trickle method also you can have this preparation of this plaster of Paris pattern. You have the plastics and rubbers. Hard plastics such as urethanes, these are there which are offering another alternative, and we are often preferring this because the plastics and rubbers, they have come very strongly as a replacement to these metals and alloys, because you have many processing methods of plastics, and plastics have the most advantage in the sense that they are quite light, they are very much inert to chemicals. These are some of the methods, they are their anti-corrosion properties, then all these properties make them very much suitable. So, you can very easily make them, fabricate them, join them with glues. So, these are the basically properties which are making these plastics and rubbers very much versatile pattern material, and they are very much replacing the materials, metals in many cases. So, plastics you have like may have the thermosetting plastics and thermoplastic plastics, and thermosetting plastics, as you know, they are very quite hard or so. So, you can have the use of either of the plastics, and because they have very good specific strength. So, that way you are using them as a very potential pattern material. Another alternative, they are used as and often preferred with processes that use strong organic bonded sands. So, that way if you use another pattern materials and when you use these organically bonded sands, they stick to it, but in that case of plastic materials, plastic pattern materials, this is not that case. So, that way it becomes advantageous. You have another process like full mold process, where the expanded polystyrene is also used. In that case the metal goes into it and that gets vaporized. So, this way it is used. You also use the wax as the pattern material in case of investment castings. So, you have both thermosetting and thermoplastic materials used as patterns, and you have thermosetting plastics are used for making long lasting and durable patterns. As we know that thermosetting plastics have good strength, and for shorter run you use the thermoplastic materials, and in thermosetting variety you have epoxy and polystyrene resins. Thermoplastic type you have polystyrene. So, polyester resins are there in thermosetting and polystyrene is among the thermoplastic. Silicon rubbers are also used for dyes in special cases. So, epoxy resins has become very popular nowadays. So, you can go through the literature and see about these different kinds of plastic materials, and now because it has very good strength to weight ratio. So, it is very much preferred. It has low cost of working, good resistance to wear abrasion, and it is immune to the action of moisture and also in many cases with the chemicals or so. So, that is how it is preferred. You have waxes also as a typical pattern material used in the investment casting. So, you have different kinds of wax like paraffin wax, canova wax, then shellac waxes, beeswax, and different kinds of waxes. So, as you know that in the case of investment casting, the wax is there which is kept in certain shape by the use of the dyes, and then it is coated with the ceramic materials, and then the pouring is done. Before that the wax is basically fired out by hitting the mold, and then pouring is done. So, wax has pattern has also have to be certain properties like should be low ash content, high tensile strength, good wettability, resistance to oxidation, low shrinkage, low melting point. All these are the requirement for a wax pattern, and you have how it is done, like blending of waxes is done. Then you have the process like injecting the liquid wax into the dye, then making the dye, further it is used with, it is coated with the ceramic materials, and this way the wax patterns are used. So, these are the pattern materials which are used. So, this way we discussed about different kinds of pattern materials which are used in the case of pattern making. Thank you very much.